All right. Come on, then. Let's do this. It's time for me to read the patch notes so you don't have to. That's right. It's time for patch review, gamers. We've got some exciting stuff today, some changes to the Gyala Delve, the new maps meta event. We've got some PvP balance. Will Catalyst finally be thrown away, discarded, thrown into the trash where it belongs? Okay, well, we're about to find out. And it's not a good day to be a world versus world repair leech either. Oh no, bad news. And also some bug fixes, and Chromium has been added to the trading post, replacing the sluggish coherent UI. Except, actually not. But anyway, more on that later. First up, we have got some changes, okay? In response to player feedback, we've made some changes to the Gyala Delve meta. The people have spoken, and ArenaNet have listened. Now, this is interesting. I think this might actually be a little bit of be careful what you wish for. So the daily cap on the keycards have been removed. You don't get the cube chests, right? They only spawn at the end of the meta event, and you don't need keys anymore. And yeah, the ancient outcast mining caches from the champion farm at the end, they got replaced by regular caches, and the prices on keys are down by about 50%. Now, the keys are down, but so are the rewards. The rewards are also down by about 50%. Too. So bear that in mind. This is not a buff to the rewards. In fact, for a single map run, this is in fact a somewhat significant nerf. The key change that's happened here, okay, is the following. This map has been changed from kind of something that you could burst down, once in a day, get big loot from your initial keys, and then you'd get very hard diminishing returns, to a little bit of a lower burst reward, but much more grindable. Essentially, this is now an infinitely grindable map, essentially, is what's happened here. Right, now, bear in mind, the fishing is still ridiculous here, too. You can get all of the ambergris, which is still amazing to be doing. It's actually pretty OP, actually. The amount of legendary fish you can get is pretty wild, but basically, that's what's happened. Personally, I'm not really into grinding the same map over and over again, but this is definitely a good change if you do. However, you'll be pretty sad about this if it was like, oh yeah, I want to get this done once, blast to get some insane loot, some crazy rewards, and then go again. And to be more specific, by the way, here, what's happened is that you get rare, unidentified gear significantly less frequently from the Gyala Delve mining cache. So you get greens instead of yellows, essentially. That's basically the deal with this. I forgot to mention something important regarding my thoughts on the Gyala Delve's changes. However, thanks to the magic of video editing, actually, I didn't forget. So, let's get into it. I think one thing that's been a little bit overlooked with ArenaNet's response to feedback on this map is actually that the entire process of buying a key and then unlocking a chest just isn't that much fun. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I simply don't really enjoy talking to a vendor to buy a key, to go out, to then open a chest. There's something about that just doesn't really seem very fluid in terms of the reward structure. I think another thing that's also a bit of an elephant in the room is the gas mechanic and the entire gas filter mechanic. It doesn't do anything. I don't understand what it's even doing here for. Just delete it at this point. Maybe ArenaNet have some kind of compelling thing that they're going to be adding in the next portion of the update. Maybe it makes a bit more sense then. But to be frank, right now, it just makes the map slightly more annoying. I get it's a roleplay feature, and that makes sense. And you know what? If you want to make a roleplay feature, then just make the gas mask infinite, right? You have to pick it up at some point. You've got to get one. You've got to juice it up with the Jade Bot or something. Well, just make it last forever then, in that case. As opposed to having this kind of annoying mechanic where you have to remember to refill it and then it just doesn't do anything else. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a few things that I wanted to bring up there. A little bonus meme. A little bonus meme there for you. Enjoy. They also fixed a whole bunch of bugs with Gyala Delves and the story, so that's good news. And just as a bit of a bug fix here as well, for those who enjoy farming some open world meta events, good news! You actually have the break bars have now been repaired on Suwon, because Suwon's break bars at 60% and 40% just, it didn't work, right? They did not, they didn't work even a tiny bit, okay? Little bit unlucky there, I guess. You know, you hate to see that, but they have now fixed that. That does make the encounter significantly more completable in pug maps that aren't as organized. It was still doable without this, of course. You could just kind of brute force it, but this definitely helps out, making it a little bit more consistent for the pug maps. And another bug fix here is dragons and ritualist stats are now also options on raid and fractal coin, which is really nice. Finally, this has been completely implemented into the game, and wow, yeah, I mean, gearing up some slightly less conventional stats. In other words, certain builds that require ritualist gear. That's like Firebrand now, for example. Renegade is really good. Spectre is really good with this type of gear type. And even some power builds, as you do use Dragon to kind of fill out, getting some extra ferocity, trading some precision off for some extra ferocity, and of course a bit of tankiness. Really cool to see this added to the game. And if you're a raider, you're going to be drowning in this stuff. Or, of course, on the exotic side, get that from the bladed armor in Verdant Brink. We absolutely love to see that. We really, really do. Okay. And of course, we'll talk about the Chromium stuff next, because this is actually quite funny. Take a look at this, gamers, okay? So, here we go. Look. This is it. It's happened. Coherent UI has been replaced with Chromium embedded framework to power web-based interfaces like the launcher and the trading post. That's awesome. We've got some serious performance. It's going to be running better. It's not going to lag as much. It's going to be awesome. We're having a great time. But let's go ahead and scroll down. Oh no! Chromium Embedded Framework has been temporarily removed and reverted to Coherent UI while we investigate a crash. Unfortunately, we were so close but so far. Sadly, it was a bit unstable and was causing a lot of people, a lot of players to have some difficulty launching the game and causing the game to run correctly. So they reverted it very quickly after it launched. A little bit unlucky. But the good news is that it was in the game for a while. And I didn't really have a chance to mess around with it and see how it performed. However, and take this with a grain of salt, this could be placebo, of course, or maybe it's not as significant. I did get some reports from players who actually got onto the game before me when it was still actually active in the game. Some people did actually report that the performance was a lot snappier and that it, you know, the overall interface was a lot more a lot cleaner to actually use and a bit more responsive. However, it is worth noting that this is just the front end. It won't solve all the problems. For example, if something takes a while to load, that's going to be on the server end, right? Not on the front end. So this isn't going to be a magic bullet that just solves every problem with the trading post, but it's definitely an important part of that process and certainly a very welcome change. So hopefully we actually see that added to the game at some point. Okay, on to the PvP stuff. So, CMC is back for another swing to try and get rid of Catalyst, but to be clear, not get rid of Catalyst. And what you'll actually be noticing with these changes is these changes are not hammer blows. They're actually very intentional to tone the build down a bit and target some very specific pain points that the build has without deleting it. I think it's clear to me that CMC does want Catalyst, specifically Scepter Catalyst, to be a potent option as a damaging roamer, that also has a very solid teamfight presence and kind of skirmishing presence. Otherwise, he would just hit it with a hammer. So, what's actually happened? Dragon's Tooth, damage down a little bit again. Water Trident, damage down. The bonus damage when striking a chilled foe is also down a little bit. So just overall damage output reduction. But the important thing is not really those two changes, in my opinion. It's the next two. Swirling Winds, which is Air Focus 4, which is a large radius projectile block, is now 4-second duration, down from 6. And Elemental Celerity, the elite skill for Catalyst, now doesn't just recharge all of your weapon skills that you currently have. It's a 25-second reduction. So, what are these changes? This is actually targeted at making the build more interactive. The chief concern with Catalyst has always been it's uninteractive. It spams magnetic aura. It spams projectile block. It spams invulnerability. So this is attempting to tone that down. Less projectile destruction here with Swirling Winds, and very key here, less invulnerability uptime and less kind of very obnoxious CC combos. 25 seconds will still recharge basically all of the weapon skills that an Elementalist has on Scepter Focus. The ones it won't recharge, though, are Gale and Obsidian Flesh. Double casting these was unbelievably frustrating to deal with. It's not fun when a build goes invulnerable for 6 seconds, right, in a row, back to back. It's not fun when it can then chain that into a block, right? Or some more projectile destruction that completely renders your attacks ineffective. It's simply not enjoyable to interact with a build like that. It's not fun to get hit by a double 1200 range mega knockdown from Gale twice in a row. That's very frustrating to deal with, right? And this is essentially what this is trying to target. It's trying to reduce the power that the Catalyst has to try and shut that down, right? To try to be really annoying, basically. Swirling Winds also does affect Elementalist in general, of course. Specifically, Tempest is the thing, but to be frank, that's probably a welcome addition. I do think that Tempest actually has similar problems. I think a lot of PvP players find this build quite frustrating to play against, actually. Well, that's kind of another thing that hasn't been addressed here, but specifically Stoneheart Tempest can be pretty brutal to go up against combined with Earth Shield, and that, yeah, I think people are a bit sick of it, to be honest, and want Earth Shield and Stoneheart to be looked at to prevent that from being such an oppressive force in PvP right now, but of course, that's for another patch. And, yeah, this is a bit of a surprise, isn't it? Scrapper nerfs in current year? Well, it turns out there's good reason for this, because, of course, the recent balance patch, it nerfed a bunch of stuff and also buffed Scrapper a decent chunk too. Specifically, gave it a good chunk more sustain with rapid regeneration, which means whenever it has super speed and swiftness, it gets a little bit of healing, and essentially nerfing other options that kind of competed with the Scrapper. It actually turns out that this build is a bit of a menace, specifically in ranked as well. And yeah, we are actually going to see some nerfs to that, in fact, as it turns out. So we have Sneak Gyro's cooldown going up, less might from kinetic accelerators and blast gyro, and then speed of synergy, just lower super speed uptime in general. Super speed is definitely something you have to be very careful about, I think, in Guild Wars 2, because mobility is such an important part of PvP. So a build that has just insane super speed uptime on itself probably isn't that much fun. Again, it's all about the interactivity. This is what CMC has been targeting, in my opinion, is interactivity. And builds that have permanent super speed are not interactive. In fact, Catalyst was very similar to this with the the one with air trait, I believe it's called, in the adept trait in air, right? Where you just, whenever you attune to air, you got super speed, and you just fresh air, recharge your air attunement, and boom, away you go. So, this is a pretty, it's a pretty sensible thing to go after, a super speed application. And the might uptime, what you'll notice is they increase the duration, but reduce the numbers of stacks. Because basically what was happening was with this build is that it would generate a lot of might on itself, and then it would just nuke you. Sometimes out of stealth with the Sneak Jar, right? And it would just absolutely hammer you with a massive grenade barrage, or just use of its powerful bursting skills, weapon skills, grenade skills, and so on, which, again, not that much fun to play against. So I do think that CMC wants to keep this build around, just not quite as extreme as it was previously. It's very cool to see Scrapper kind of back in the mix, though, right? For sure, and I've got to say that a lot of things that are happening in PvP are pretty interesting right now. We are seeing CMC try to push quite high damage builds like Catalyst and Scrapper to keep the meta moving relatively quickly with quite a high tempo and high kill rate. I think that is important. We've all seen what happens when sustain goes too high and you can't kill anything. It's not that much fun. Now we're seeing Critical Strike's Daredevil back in the mix, really getting some kills, moving very fast. Across the map, picking up kills. Side note is being a little bit less tanky with the warrior nerfs to sustain, so now Thief can actually generate kills a little bit easier. Now you can roam and you can force a kill in a 1v2 or, significantly punish your opponent much better than previously. So I think that PvP is definitely moving in a good direction with stuff like this. We'll have to see if Catalyst is actually going to survive this. I actually suspect it will. I think the build will definitely still be competent, just kind of toned down a bit more. Maybe it won't. Maybe you aren't going to be running two of them, right? Like a lot of the time, people are still spamming two of these in all of their high-end comps. I think having one, or like one being a very compelling option, is where you want to be, of course. But yeah, overall, not so bad. It's good to see some more regular balance changes kind of getting in there. This is not even an official balance patch. The next balance patch is coming up in May, so relatively soon, of course. But really cool to see CMC actually having the time to make a few key adjustments to some of the, the outliers, the overperforming builds that exist in PvP right now. But yeah, definitely check out Scrapper if you're a Scrapper fan in PvP, because this build is definitely still going to be powerful. You should never underestimate any NG build that can get away with running grenades, believe me. And, of course, you're fast as hell. Definitely going to be a lot of fun, but certainly still a strong and powerful option for PvP. And finally, we've got World vs. World. Not really anything too crazy. And what's happened here is, this is kind of a funny one. Repairing walls and gates will no longer award participation. So, this is such a funny thing. So the reason this happened was because the new objective scaling rewards, so you get rewards for defending something, it was causing people to basically just spam queue into EB, filling the map with people not actually playing World vs. World, and all they were doing was just burning all the supply that exists to repair Stone Mist Castle to basically just get infinite rewards by doing this, right? Just by getting like big loot simply by doing that, right? Very funny, but probably not super healthy for the game. They didn't want to just nuke rewards from defending. They wanted to keep that in play. But there were just a few issues with this happening. And to be frank, this is probably a good change, right? Like, the gameplay that this system encouraged wasn't great. Hell, I've even done this. I'm like, oh, it's daily objective defender. Let me go find a wall to repair to get my daily objective defender. Yeah, that's probably not good enough. Now, I will say that they might want... There are a few things that probably need to be dealt with here. Specifically, they need to make sure that supports get proper participation when they're supporting their allies or healing. So that, they don't have to rely on repairing anymore. But also, they may want to actually look at the radius of certain defend events. Occasionally, what can actually happen, this happened to me a lot, actually, even with the current system, is what will happen is you'll kind of chase a player who's attacking a camp or a tower or something, and you'll get too far away, and you'll no longer get event credit, right? Because you got too far away, and it doesn't count anymore, because you're outside of the event radius. So they might actually want to look at this and play around this to kind of guarantee that the combat is correctly granting participation. So you've kind of got to watch out for that there as well in that particular regard. But overall, not... I think this is a good change, right? Because, again, the existing system, it really encouraged kind of leeching or not really playing World versus World, and it just led to people just like clogging up the maps while not really playing, and that's not really what ArenaNet want to have in World versus World. So I'd say a positive change overall here, but certainly does highlight the need for ArenaNet to continue to iterate on their participation system, particularly when it comes to supports. I would really like to see them address supports getting proper kill participation while fighting and while fighting over objectives as quick as possible. That's very, very good stuff indeed. But yeah, that's the news. That, I believe, is the news. Oh yeah, one more thing, I guess. Make sure that you buy your requisition credits. Use the silk. That's the cheapest one, because look at this value. Are you ready? Boom! We can help the economy of Guild Wars 2 by burning our materials, and we get ourselves free Blackline boosters and free Blackline statuettes. Oh yeah! That's what I'm talking about. Make sure you get in here and throw some materials at this Azura. Definitely worth your while. Here I'm on my 0 to hero, getting those delicious boosters that I'll store in my bank and never use. But you know what? They're there. They're a good ornament to have about the place. Okay, look at that putrid inventory. You love to see it. But anyway, there it is. That'll do. Pretty, it's a patch. That's a patch. It's not a major release, of course, or anything like that. But, the game's still alive, and I'm personally definitely looking forward to seeing how the Chromium embedded framework is going to perform, and of course other quality of life improvements down the line. They really can be the changes. The small changes can be the ones that do actually make the difference to your gaming experience. But anyway, that's it. Hope you've enjoyed the news, and good news, you don't have to read the patch notes anymore, because I already did it. Ha! See, public service right there. But anyway, let me know what you gamers think. I don't even need to say it. Okay, subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. Take it easy, gamers. I'm out of here. Boom. Shout out to this gamer playing the minstrel for us, by the way. Overlapping with the music a little bit, but you know what? A little bonus meme, okay? Good stuff. The cock as well. The QOQ. Beautiful stuff. Lovely. All right, I'm out of here.